YouTube comments from a video titled, "How much food can I grow in 1 year?" Part 5.
Alaska 8713 wrote,
Your thumbnail looked like a Rust video, but it is IRL stuff. Sorry, I mean real life stuff, like farming and other things. I liked the info shared. My grandma used to grow stuff, and yes, we always had extra garlic and onions. BTW, the more fine you cut either, the more flavor you get out, so cut them properly and use less. It will have pretty much same effect on food.
At Christian Marriott 3696 wrote,
The idea of growing your own food is great, but the problem arises that it's just so inefficient to feed a population that way. I can spend a few hours at work and earn enough money to buy a month's worth of food, or I can spend a month growing food.
and No Name 3 wrote,
Hello, I just found your channel, so I'm not sure whether your channel is based on growing plants or it's a one-time thing, but I've been learning agroculture for about 3 years now, and watching you grow plants was really exciting for me since I haven't interacted much with growing plants. All I'm trying to say is I really liked this video and hoping to find more of these type of videos in your channel.
At Angel White 1328 wrote,
Toms grow better, inside roots outside, cucumbers peppers inside. My father gets 20 cucumbers of one plant. You can buy them from the supermarket and use the seeds. You can buy flowers to stop the slugs or a simple water around your beds so they fall in. Not bad for first time. Turn over the dial on winter to kill of the slugs, they will be in the soil. Use horse manure the bedding they sleep in. This gives you lots of food. Turn it in.
At Paul Haynes 8045 wrote,
As a gardener of some years, some of this rang true. Other bits you were either lucky or you've got green fingers. The biggest problems I've found is a sunlight. My garden is overshadowed by trees for much of the day. B, drought. The last few years in SE England have been terrible, with weeks without rain and months of below average rainfall. Last year, we had 2 months of drought. Then, just as things were picking up, a dull, cool, wet autumn. So nothing ripened properly. See, slugs and snails. But no one blames them. Nothing seems to stop them. So you just have to live with them. Slugs live in the soil. By the way, so your potatoes aren't safe even if you don't see them. D, potato scab. Impossible to get rid of, although some varieties are almost scab-free. Doesn't actually ruin the potatoes, but they look awful. E, drying, keeping onions properly. Very difficult if you haven't got a conservatory. The shed is too damp, the cellar ditto. And my wife doesn't want onions hanging about all winter. But if you're lucky, it's not too difficult to grow, just about enough to last a year. F, by the time you harvest, the same crops in the shops are dirt cheap. And G, too much of everything. Okay with onions and potatoes, as you can store them. But cucumbers, tomatoes, etc. won't keep. So you end up preserving and bottling everything, which is tedious and takes ages. And I've never managed to get carrots to grow.
Isugo di Gatto wrote,
Is that topinamber behind you with those tall yellow flowers? The bulbous rhizomes are edible and yummy. So should their leaves and flowers be, but I haven't tried them yet.
At Vocano6991 wrote,
You did pretty good as a person. Eho helps his father in the garden. I know a lot about farming it me study on. That topic in my FRRR time, so yes pretty god, but yous shouldn't use sickers when cutting a plant if you pull, and it pops if it's ready if you pull and pull, and it doesn't come if it's not ready yet.
At Good Vibes 4351 wrote,
Slugs, there is a trick. Since you have a raised bed, run 2 base wires arrowing the raised bed, some 4 inches 1 centimeters apart. Connect them to a Viden Tamer 9V battery. As they try climb into your bed, they self-electrocute by stepping on this ring of wires. After some time, they learn not to even try that.
At Taigo Martinho 77 wrote,
It is also worth the extra cost. To eat something you know it's high quality homegrown. Even the flavor I bet is way better and healthier than supermarkets.
At The Safety Smith wrote,
A lot. Even more if you know how to can veggies and fruit and berries. You will save tons of money and the product will taste better than store-bought.
At Robert Porter 6683 wrote,
Take into account how much money you would have spent on a different leisure activity taking up the same time as the gardening. I bet it would have cost you more. Figure those savings into each year.
At Lacklangreen 8389 wrote,
I can't believe your housemates allowed you to use 1/3 of the garden. Like they were doing anything with the rest of it? Bloody idiots, if you ask me. They could have benefited from fresh produce year-round, but instead chose to be political.
At Mine0242 wrote,
You are the first English person I see cooking a pasta dish in the right way. And I am saying this as an Italian guy, so compliments.
At Silver Siren 7046 wrote,
I'm a biologist. I know how it works, but growing plants is still like magic to me. The Royal Horticultural Society has some great tips to get buddie gardeners started, and it's all free.
At TVRSKKNGDM 2333 wrote,
I can see out of here the wood of the cabinets has a color telling the wood was prepped. Please take huge precaution before using any of these chemicals. Those which prevent wood from rotten always are not compatible with the food and soil for growing food. Huge respect from Russia.
Some Night wrote,
My first 3 years growing a garden has been a learning experience in terms of what will do well in my soil/lighting/pests. Some stuff that is supposed to be easy to grow has been a complete failure, and other things have done surprisingly well. This year, I plan on taking those lessons learned and stop wasting time with things like beets and kale that for whatever reason won't grow well despite all the positives I read, and focus on things that actually do well in my yard, such as lettuce, spinach, beans, and tomatoes. Going to be my garden's smarter, not harder approach. As far as pests go, the slugs look like a pain. I have deer issues. Anything I don't have fenced in, they strip clean.
At Danielle Wells 3381 wrote,
That's the thing about growing your own. You have to be able to process and store it all. It can be a lot and you don't enable some help, especially if you grow quite a bit.
At a resident 7745 wrote,
Most Euro video I've seen in a while. Single man living with 2 other people, his parents, I presume. Growing a bunch of stuff in a 20x20 yard, somehow managing to have a huge pond in it for some reason. Weird bunch, you Euros.
At Ing 4847 wrote,
Very well done. I am impressed that you two recommended me this channel, to be quite frank. I am very proud of you, Alex. That is definitely one of my lifelong dreams.
At BMTV Meditation and Sleep wrote,
What a great video. Growing your own food seems difficult, but the pleasure you get out of cooking and eating your own food is amazing. Great job for your first time.
At Zipzorp 123 wrote,
If you ever need to improve the quality of a heavy clay soil, you can add a powder called gypsum, which is known as a clay breaker, or more accurately, a flocculant. And what it does is pretty much cause the clay and the general structure of the soil to loosen up and break up into a more viable planting structure. Just wanted to mention this after you said that your garden soil had a very high clay content. Cheers.
At Bhagavadadasai 2373 wrote,
You should keep your own seeds, which will make the plants more resistant to your own particular soil and climate conditions. It will make it cheaper and even more rewarding. Let one carrot plant, preferably the strongest, go to flower and seed. Let one courgette just grow huge, so its seeds can be used next year. Also, grow the tomatoes inside, and you can grow the cucumbers outside, maybe up against the fence where you had planted the tomatoes.
At DNTME wrote,
The costs of the wood and such can be amortized over the years you can use it. That the cost isn't the point. The way things are going, it's availability that will become the issue. When you can't get enough food at any price, that's when all you do to grow your own will become much more valuable than gold. No food? You're screwed. Keep learning. Heck, the tips in the comments on this video are an education in themselves.
At Mimirovich wrote,
Well, you're not supposed to buy anything again and plant for the next year with what you harvested, so it might be cheaper actually. It is just the starter which cost.
Ashmorgus wrote,
I just find this ridiculous, that a video about something that was a normal thing to do not that long ago is some kind of viewer hype these days.
Colin Timmons wrote,
Be careful. Don't want to eat that yellow snow. As a kid, it was so much fun to do, and I was the bright kid on the block that would refuse all forms of discolored snow.
At Ivandrish wrote,
Cut the potatoes in smaller pieces. So you don't need to put the whole potato. And with one potato, you can make a lot of plants. Just make sure that each piece has one of these eyes.
At the Spanish Guitar Hub wrote,
I am sure it is more than 64 pounds. You grew organic vegetables, not just normal ones. Also, it is so much fresher what you produce, and the taste is not even close to the ones in the supermarket.
Sabaka Alexander Gulafer Wunber wrote,
When I was a small boy, my family and I planted 3 large bags of potatoes, and then we collected 12 large bags of potatoes, and we also have a wooden table near the garden turned into 4 trees.
At Purple People 2834 wrote,
Warning about potatoes: if you don't get every last one out of the beds, when ready they will keep growing every year. I have potatoes still growing in my boxes from 2 years ago. This may not be the same everywhere, but hey.
At Rodwe's 1983 wrote,
The taste of your homegrown vegetables tastes 10x better than from the supermarket, so even if it costs you more the first year, you can earn that back next year. I don't have room for it, otherwise I would.
At Abigail Mkernwa King Withbow 4582 wrote,
Totally inspirational. I built my first raised bed last year and felt the same satisfaction as you growing tomatoes, onions, courgettes, spinach, red cabbage, and parsnips. Also planted 15 fruit trees, and I'm 68. I love feeling more self-sufficient, especially as there are shortages in the supermarket fruit and veg aisles. Looking forward to year 2. Congratulations.
At Trumplostlol 3007 wrote,
Starting from the second year, you will realize your garden is starting to be invaded by pests like slugs, ants, moths, butterflies, Japanese beetles, leaf miners, flea beetles, squash vine borers, critters. You spend so much on raised beds, soils, seeds. Why you still don't know how to grow things the natural way, that is to say, with nothing but natural soil in a natural ecosystem. Growing things so intensively with such a small space is much more difficult than you think in the long run.
At Godzilla's 6301 wrote,
As soon as I heard carrots, I knew it's a loss leader. Certain things are a pain to grow or are so cheap so don't bother. Carrots, for example, are cheap, so not worth doing. Others, such as cucumber, give a crop you simply can't eat and don't store. Onions you can pack in and simply ignore and still get a great crop. Peas are easy to grow, taste great, but you need lots and lots of room. So it choose very carefully and work out an expectation of yield and how long you can still pull the crop. 5 kilo of beetroots fun, but what you going to do with them? Cabbage. They get beyond big when you grow them yourself, plus they are around a while before going to seed, so just a few are needed. Pull off leaves and not the whole plant. Spring onion are great. Pull as and when over months. Allow to go to seed for next year's. The same with chives. Keep trimming until the purple flowers, then harvest for next seasons. Spuds, well, you want 30 off each spud planted, with more like 45 for someone who feeding them what they want and have the correct type. You also most likely want need to seed again next year, as the previous crop always crops up again, be it in the ground or compost heap. As with all, spread the love to the family, and if you can find others who grow and swap your produce. 5 kilo of spud in exchange for strawberries and raspberries, etc.
At Scam Community 3368 wrote,
Amazing but sad at the time. That's why people must go to the market for food, because it's not profitable harvesting by they own £65 for 1 year of work. That is not smart. But remember, the most important thing from produce food on yard is to be able to harvest on any conditions. Pandemics, lockdown, wars at sea. So keep doing and for the long time, and one day you will be reward for this.
Pafkatax wrote,
My grandma is a gardener, but we have 1,000 meters squared of a backyard. Do you know how 200 kilos of potatoes look like? I don't even count the zucchini, watermelon, strawberries, onion, garlic, peppers, and many other herbs.
At Andy 36101 wrote,
Growing vegetables in your garden be never profitable or saving money. It's just a hobby, stress relief, and healthier products at sea. Other than that, you would never save much money on growing your own vegetables.
At JadeFrost_10 wrote,
Just some tips my grandma used to step on the onion leaves. Like right from the ground where the leaves pop out of the ground, bend them and not break them. As in put the leaves on floor at the time where the onions start to grow the flower stick. This way, the onion would stop producing flower and seeds and feed all the food in the bulb. She used to grow massive onions. Also harvesting them was being done late summer. When the leaves were completely dry, also potatoes, unless you want the summer potatoes that are easy to peel. She used to make potatoes for winter, so she would only harvest them when the leaves and stems were dried out.
At Larry Lynx wrote,
Pondering apocalypse scenarios here. I would be doomed, and here's why. Let's assume I managed to hunt 50% of my cacao. Very, very doubtful. Let's also assume I am about as efficient as you are in regards to cultivating. Current needs: 1,200 cacao/day hunting cacao removed, most efficient crop. Potatoes, 2 kilos/m2 per year weight of potatoes needed to sustain 1200 kcal 1,3 kilos/day. That equals 240 meters to land per year. Keep in mind that you lose more yield to diseases in a bigger crop area. Could I maintain and protect 300 m2 of land during an apocalypse while hunting? I don't think so.
At LYNB 2039 wrote,
Your vids are top tier. What I love is your meter in speaking, your excellent up-close videography and pictures, your step-by-step processes, your humility, cheeky humor, and tenacity, and one of the best elements is your transparency, sharing with us your entire journey from beginning to end, including your successes and failures. You're a really intelligent, likable guy to boot. You're helping me to plan and design sustainability in my life, and for my first new homestead, which I'll be moving into in the next couple months. New fan and following. Thank you. Lynn from New York.
At Daydream 605 wrote,
If you have any ash left over from hedge cuttings, you can use that as a barrier against slugs. They won't like it, and it contains calcium and potassium.
At JB Ruski wrote,
My dude is a gangster using a handsaw instead of a skill saw nowadays. Also, the get after it mentality with seemingly little trades knowledge is super inspiring. I have a lot of fabricating and carpentry skills, yet I do nothing like this simple gardening raised, super useful beds. Awesome.
At Jose Luis Rodriguez Trujillo 3590 wrote,
You don't have to bury the whole potatoes. They have like yolks in Spanish are called like that. EDK in English, if you cut the potatoes in pieces with a yolk in it, you can plant as many potatoes as yolks there are in the potato.
At Epic Lego Warrior 7416 wrote,
If one swaps the iron for copper and applies electroculture, the yields will more than quadruple easily. No need for pesticides or fertilizer, nor as much water.
That the Winjin wrote,
800, 4 inches deep, 30 centimeters apart is such a British thing to say. As far as I know, no other country in the world uses both systems of measurements to that degree of willy-nilly.
At Truth Matters 1950 wrote,
2008, I feel happy. I appreciate a lot more. There's the big payoff. Thanks, Alex, for the practical, honest, sincere, and entertaining documentary of your experience, physically and emotionally. Take some extra satisfaction that your effort has added to the motivation of an old fart, halfway around the world, to pursue his grow your own adventure. Peace.
Quattratobi wrote,
I think your grown veggies and so on are more worth because the quality should be much higher as from the supermarket. The taste is much better too. And yes, it's very satisfying to hold the results of your work in hands. Good against depressions.
At Neon Gen 2000 wrote,
This is just the first year. You mentioned the startup costs like wood to set up the patch. Here are a few other things to consider. Obviously, the next batch of compost can be smaller because you can use the plant waste of the last harvest as compost for the next one. At best, you can buy a catalyst to enhance composting or take slightly longer and compost it naturally. Then you mentioned that you started out not knowing exactly what you were doing. With each iteration of your garden, you learn more and become more efficient. Maybe some plants can be planted closer together. Maybe there are tricks to make certain vegetables to grow bigger, like planting them in a spot with more sunlight. You no longer have to buy seeds. Growing food in general isn't a very profitable industry because we have been doing it for thousands of years and have pretty much gotten it down to a science. Profit margins are extremely thin to the point where a handful of people need huge amounts of land for mass production just to be a viable business. The only thing you can really save on by growing your own food is distribution costs. Since the food doesn't need to be shipped to your house or a store close to your house, you can get your profit out of those costs. Because an actual professional farmer is probably way more efficient than you will ever be and can get his materials way cheaper than you could ever get because he does mass purchases.
Asefakorlu 4029 wrote.
At the end of the video, finally, I see some West people give value to the foods. I hope they don't put foot on them or smash them inside the toilet.
Rialeen wrote.
I started a garden myself, and it is like magic. It starts with a tiny seed, and in the end, you have a big plant and things to eat.
David Hargreaves 1728 wrote.
Your slug problem is simple. Get the blue slug pellets, and instead of surrounding your plants, not nice moving all the dead soggy bodies, draw a line of slug pellets right around your perimeter fence. Inside. Once the slugs on the inside have either died or have been removed, etc., you only need to top up your border once a year, maybe 6 months. You will eradicate all slugs and never have that pesky problem ever again.
Jeff Banks 9955 wrote.
I suppose, though, going forward, it will yield better results and become more economical. And don't forget the whole point was to be more self-sufficient, which you achieved. Great stuff, Alex.
12 Wing Productions 7508 wrote.
You learned a lot, and that's the main thing. This gives a very healthy respect to how cooperative food production really is. The biggest issue you have is you didn't specialize. For example, if you had done nothing but grown onions or potatoes or squash, your yield would have been many more times what you personally could have consumed. The issue then is that you need to have a friend that grows something you did not. You need a friend with chickens, you need a friend that is a beekeeper. You get the idea. It simply isn't possible for any one person to grow all the food for their family unless they have an enormous amount of land. And at that point, they are more hunter-gatherers than setting up an agrarian substance. Great fun watching your video, Alex. Best of luck to you.
Limegreen Technologies 8803 wrote.
Hey man, this was an amazing video. I really liked it. Where did you get the information for this garden? If you could let me know, I am interested in doing something like this too.
Jassarian PL wrote.
At 14, 30 you got what is called water mold, or potato blight, Phytophthora infestans, which can attack both potato and tomato plants. This is the stuff which caused famine in Ireland in XIX century. This is also reason why you should never have both plants close to each other. Soil is already contaminated with it, so it will need some fungicide use or replacement.
Gaia's Rebirth wrote.
Compost you would create yourself with garden leftovers and feces. So yeah, that's your own fault, and my compost is so big I can make a garden from that alone XD.
Johangelin 8979 wrote.
Slugs are easy to get rid of. Just throw a party with lots of beer. No kidding, they love beer, so a few jars with a beer in it halfway buried, and the slugs have a happy drunken death.
Roiven EQ1ML wrote.
This was enjoyable and knowledgeable to watch. But I think I'd just stick with buying from the store lol. The amount of labor and time to put in for free food isn't worth it. That's just me.
Nettie Grande 16 wrote.
You probably won't see this comment as it's been a year. However, one way apart from getting a hedgehog or chickens is put some tubs into the soil. Fill it with beer, can be cheap beer, and they literally get drunk so can't climb out, and you can fling them away or put salt on them.
Johnner 8603 wrote.
Growing up in the north, we saw a lot of snow,
so the only time we had to grow vegetables was in the spring and summertime, as by fall time and winter the snow would come, and you didn't have the weather for growing anything. We used to have about 4 beds in our backyard filled with all sorts of vegetables. We had so many vegetables to the point where we would go to all our neighbors and give them some of what we had grown so that we wouldn't lose or waste anything. Now we live in the south of the US where it does not snow here, and we just never got back into the garden vegetable growing thing, but I hope to get back into this again soon sometime. Thank you for sharing this love, seeing all the freshness and the number of vegetables you were able to grow.
F4 wrote,
An advice: let the potato plant to completely die before harvest. You want it to be brown and with a lot of plants. You can let them grow a bit longer after they are ready to harvest to get seeds from them, like with Latsi for example. After a while it start to flower, then it's seed. Oh, and another thing, I am pretty sure your courgette has died from fungi infection with the white powder on the leaves.
Ediviek 3809 wrote,
As a little girl, I wanted to grow vegetables. My mum told me to try growing potatoes under my windowsill, where the ground was really hard. She said they would turn the soil to gold. She wasn't far off. Hard, rocky dirt was turned into lush brown soil that produced a beautiful crop of 30 or so potatoes.
Mr_no_name wrote,
First things I grew in my garden were tomatoes, jalapenos, habaneros, and ghost peppers. The peppers grew in such abundance, I had to give them away at work.
Vladimir Kahurik 34 wrote,
This morning, about 2 hours ago, I stole same marker as yours. Same, can't believe it. World is a small place. Stole it from my 3-year-old daughter though, XD.
Ajondo GY3YY wrote,
If this is common knowledge in London, at least most people don't know. The reason your potatoes look so fresh and firm is because they are so-called new potatoes. In agriculture, a new potato has been harvested within the year. It has not been kept in storage for as long as a regular potato. They are valued for ostensibly better flavor and texture. Next time you go to a fancy restaurant, if you're lucky enough to, they often only serve new potatoes. And will name them as such on the menu, because traditionally there has been an element of class in eating new potatoes, which would imply eating potatoes because you feel like it, rather than old ones, which would imply you need to eat them out of scarcity.
Dave Reed 8636 wrote,
I grew vegetables on an allotment I had 10 years ago. If you plant marigolds around the borders of the raised beds, it'll attract slugs and snails to them. Also, when they die, deadhead and reuse the seeds to grow a never-ending supply of replacement plants plus as hope. Hope said hope.
@8_XC wrote,
Having your own vegetables at small scale is not profitable at all. It's not about that. Growing your own plants gives you experience, healthy vegetables, and in SHTF you have them on spot and can grow them in the future. Also, not all of them are worth having at all. IMO best plants to grow in small gardens are carrots, potatoes, parsley, and beans. You can store them all after season and use them to make soup or something. If you add little greenhouse, you can grow tomatoes. They don't like rain, so keeping them outside in our climate will most likely end up with fungal infections. Apple tree or cucumbers are also a nice addition.
Skinwalk3 R586 wrote,
Even sometimes you can leave the potatoes a little bit longer than 100 days. Doesn't hurt to do it. And while they will grow bigger and fill your stomach more, it's better to leave them small And if they do have a nice bright yellow color, the more they will taste and with the blight that you had going on. If you notice it, cut the plat down ASAP so the blight doesn't spread.
Eshan Kali wrote,
The cost of what you need to grow food is just the first year. After that, you can keep the seed of what you harvest, and the next year is free, and you can save money.
As Sam Squanch 1783 wrote,
It would have been insightful to calculate the startup costs separately from the harvest yield to actually predict if it was economically viable. As in, how much would you make a year if only paying for soil maintenance and seeds, if you don't have them from last year's growth, to see if it made sense for you to do gardening? Besides the fact that it's fun and great to learn, also you get your own homegrown foods.
The Cornflakes Random Stuff wrote,
It is not always about saving money. When it comes to food, it tastes just so much better to grow your own food than the stuff from the supermarket. Great video for sure.
Echpap 7490 wrote,
Well, I'd get potatoes with more eyes on them, and I'd cut them in, make a row and barely cover them. More will grow if it's got eyes.
The Tama Jr. wrote,
I'm going to take some pictures so you can see what tomatoes I have in the 3M high greenhouse and produce as much as I can, onions at 600 G. Too big, I'll change the seed. No one buys.
The Tama Jr. wrote,
You can't just have big potatoes. It must be from seeds, too. I am from Romania. I give a piece of advice. The potato as much as an egg for the next production. In my area, 50 tea are produced in my village by each family. More or less. Choose the potato to be clean without pits or other scars. And when it gets to have flowers, the earth moves next to it. Then you will have big potatoes. Last year I had 1 potato per 1 kilogram. Know that it is not good when it is big. It spoils quickly. They are sold at restaurants for fast consumption.
Ethifishfin, a tick 7106 wrote,
For bigger potatoes, before you plant the seed potatoes, remove all but 2 or 3 of the sprouts by scraping them off with a spoon or shallow cutting with a knife. Allow a week for the seed potato to heal itself from the wounds, then plant just as you did. This will give you less numbers of tubers, but they will all be larger. Your courgette's got powdery mildew. Common and normal. You can prune for more airflow or just plant seedlings ahead of time to replace affected plants. Tomatoes are a course unto themselves. Have fun going down the rabbit hole on the internet and have fun growing your own food. Good video, mate.
At Jeremy Lanier 4743 wrote,
The other things to think about. You have food, so maybe you ordered out less. Many of the things you grew might provide you with a means to grow without buying next year.
At Lester 44444 wrote,
851, here's a hot gardening tip. Roast potatoes taste great on Sunday afternoons, but also taste pretty great on all the other days, depending on the weather and the vibe.
At the Bundy Bear 5557 wrote,
Mate, you can cut your potatoes into pieces. As long as you cut off a bit with a shoot, they'll grow. You don't need to plant the whole potato and you'll get more.
At Evaceptor wrote,
I think for all our small and very small plot owners, we should consider what high-cost/yield vegetables grow best in our soil and climate and stick to that. Hint, most of them grow up or in a bush. For me, it's pole beans and hot peppers, and considering I eat a lot of them, I would say I am saving money on those items. For the peppers, I also add value by preparing them into hot sauces.
At Reception Vector 122 wrote,
I would have loved to see you do a second year of your vegetable garden and the crop productions and learnings you made from that. Best crops to grow with biggest yield, etc. Pest control.
A Dudful of Jelly wrote,
Part of the problem is you grew all basic food staples potatoes. Onions and carrots are three of the absolute cheapest vegetables you can buy from the supermarket. Invest in fruit bushes, blueberries, raspberries, cherry trees, etc. They are perennial and produce large crops of high-value fruit. Organic blueberries and raspberries rarely drop below £10 per kilo. Carrots more like 50p per kilo.
Cosius Rose HP wrote,
You should not plant tomatoes in the same garden as potatoes. Potatoes often carry a disease that also affects tomatoes, and it can stay in the ground for up to 2 years.
A Jen Shotter 2013 wrote,
Not sure if you're still having problems with slugs, but if you put out a bowl of beer, the slugs will attract to those bowls and drown themselves.
Anine 1101 Do wrote,
Best way to plant a tomatoes is hooked up to ground. In the nut with several hole on side. One tomatoes can grow out form that holds 1 to 1,5 inch big. I'll see in muddle of butt giver by several hole penetrated tube what will be as water delivery bridge with cone on top. It will make your watering where event on roots. Also and let slugs attack your plants. Happy planting.
A Pirluigida Pietro 8097 wrote,
The soil and the planks are a one-time cost. You should count fertilizers if you don't combine with soil enrichment crops and do not rotate the crops. There is way more to learn about growing food in an effective and balanced way, assured.
At Esperanza Kakazoo 8744 wrote,
Grow vegetables frozen them to save until when winters comes, then plant again when summer comes. Vegetable store is so expensive to buy. Also some veggies there don't have store. People's nowadays plant vegetables in the garden, and that's what I did too, planting vegetables.
At Crisk 9533 wrote,
Really interesting to see this from a beginner, as I have thinking about doing something similar. Have already tried to grow tomatoes and didn't really work out. Planned most in a local park.
At William Fleury wrote,
Because your raised beds were built and the compost mix was new, you did not have the benefit of your soil building a microbial wonderland that will happen for year 2. Don't lose heart. You made an investment this first year, and you will see greater yields in years to come. You should also consider succession plantings of your veggies so you don't have to harvest all at once. For example, have a planting of some of each veggie, and the next week plant some more of the same, and keep planting throughout the growing season so you will have harvests throughout the summer.
At Shemek 4700 wrote,
Great video. Also, I like your pizza oven build as well. Something I've wanted to do for a long time, but not really looked into what is needed. Growing your own veggies is great fun.
At Lullabelle 6586 wrote,
To cut the cost of seeds, let some of your plants go to seed. I grow lettuce that you only pick the leaves as you want to eat them, not iceberg where you pick the whole plant. Eventually they go to seed and drop the seeds on the ground. Next season they grow by themselves. I have grown silver beet this way also. Put your VG scraps back into the garden as compost.
The Tetrasanarchy wrote,
The only thing I'm concerned about is that treated lumber. Always worried about the chemicals they use to treat wood. It's probably not that big deal, but I just rebuild mine every 5 or 6 years so I can stick with non-treated.
At Konstantin Zilberberg wrote,
Powdery mildew that you have on the courgettes usually appears in an overly humid places. Perhaps you've watered them too much. Also can be that you put too much compost in the bed. Too much nitrogen in the soil empowers the fungus. To get the soil ready for the next crop, or in between crops you can plant fabaceae peas, beans, clover or rapeseed and mustard. After a couple weeks when they are green and before they flower, just stick them in the soil. And when you're planting the potatoes, you can cut on into pieces with one sprout in each, and each piece would grow into an individual plant. Also, as said, you should pick the flowers and cover most of the green with more soil.
Ethys Gunvold 4219 wrote.
You should try the same concept, but with hydroponics instead toss a message on over to the land down under. Bujo's got all the information you could ever want and need, and I'm sure he would love to help you out. Otherwise, nice stuff, mate.
Gillard wrote.
Hi there. You've probably come up with a bunch of other clever tricks to gardening in the past year, but I have one for potatoes. My dad has become quite the raised garden potato whisperer. Before he plants his potatoes, he actually cuts them in half. You want to make sure that both halves have at least 2 eyes or sprouts on them before planting. You can then plant both halves. You'll double your potato yield. Super cool.
Ed Artie Craftiroo wrote.
Very interesting video. Almost every family in Russia has dacha small country house with piece of land. We growing vegetables, fruits, and different berries. I should say that it brings no profit or completely release you from going to shop, but it brings you satisfaction of knowledge that you can do it by your hands. As we say, we need dacha not for food or money, but for soul. Greetings from Russia. Good luck. Subscribed.
Ed Alexander Danilov 6076 wrote.
Hi, Alex. I hope you will read my comment one day. The correct calculation of the real cost of the food you grew should include the health benefits that you got from it. I am much older than you and can tell you 100% chemicals-free food is one of the staples of good health when you age. Sickness is extremely dear.
At Linda Turner 6686 wrote.
Well done, you. It's not necessarily how much money you saved growing your own, however the food is organically grown. There are no travel costs and pollution to the planet, and the taste is unbeatable. I hope you continue growing and gaining experience, also inspiring other young people to do the same.
At Shill 76 wrote.
Having a garden like yours as a wee lad. We would put out small cups of beer, which attracts the slugs. They go in the beer and die. Yup, true story. Cheers, Alex.
At Contemplate 8727 wrote.
Should compare the price with organic crops instead. Because normal vegetables growth with pesticide which home don't and proper organic or real non-pesticide vegetable price is much expensive.
At Jeffrey Toomey 682 wrote.
Good luck, we must keep trying to survive. All UN-controlled governments are or will soon be finding private gardens and destroying them. That's why the WEF monsters are buying up farmland all around the world to create their food shortage. In the USA, the monster Bill Gates now owns the most farmland. Then the next biggest is Amazon billionaire fella. Then BlackRock Corporation, of course. And no surprise there, these WEF monsters don't farm. The UN-controlled Dutch government politician traders are destroying their farmers. So far, they have successfully closed over 600 farms, making laws to prevent farming from being viable. Do you realize that the Netherlands farmers are about the best farmers in the world when you consider the size of the Netherlands to the size of the USA? The Netherlands farmers were the second largest exporters of food in the world, second only to the USA before the WEF monsters began destroying farming. Most people have no idea that all United Nations member countries have been loyal UN puppets for nearly half a century since they agreed to the UN Lima Agreement 45 years ago. Since then, all of these politician traders sign all agreements put in front of them by the WEF's puppets in the United Nations. The WEF's first cricket factory is in Canada. It produces tons of cricket proteins and advertising for animal and human consumption, which sounds just too evil to be believed. Did you ever see the movie starring Charlton Heston called Soylent Green? That's where WEF chairman Klaus Schwab got the idea for feeding the global slave population insects. The end of the movie is where they are actually heading. Remember, WEF website explains why most of the global population must be eliminated. Just too many slaves to be sustainably controlled and feed.